Jackie, good morning. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah. How serious is this problem?
Well, Dan, from MTN's perspective, we have fortunately invested very heavily in batteries. So our network is better protected than others, but it's incredibly serious. It's costing an enormous amount of money. In 2018, MTN spent in the region of 250 million rand just on the security around protecting the network. Last year, we spent 650 million rand on that, and that's excluding the cost of the batteries. So the costs just to protect the base stations are escalating. And the problem is, the batteries require a certain amount of charge time. So the batteries, like any kind of backup battery, require a kind of they offer 6 to 12 hours of coverage, but then they need another 8 to 12 hours to recharge. So when we're in the current sort of stage 2 load shedding, we're okay. But when we start to roll into stage 3 and stage 4, that's when the batteries start to struggle, and you start to have base stations that aren't functioning.
Now, those batteries, they're needed to fire up the tower.
That's right. So we're dependent on traditional power from Eskom or City Power. And when that goes down, the batteries kick in. So we have made sure that the bulk of our towers are connected, because obviously people's security systems rely on that. We've got ambulance services using it. So it really is, it's a critical resource.
But somebody has thought, there's a business there, let's steal these batteries.
We've had a really great collaboration with the police, the South African Police Service on this. We've been running videos out. We've got posters up in police stations, educating police and communities on what to look for, because these are very specific batteries. These batteries weren't designed for urban or suburban use.
Are they small, big? I mean,
they're big batteries. They're really big. They're only designed for cell phone towers. So that's why we're trying to get these pictures out there to make sure that people know what they're getting at.
In case somebody comes knocking on the door and say, hey, I've got a battery for you.
Exactly. And what we were finding is they were actually being sold by companies that were purporting to be completely legitimate solar operators. So you would call a company, say, look, I want to go off-grid, I want to save the environment, I want to protect myself from having to be dependent on an alternate resource or from Eskom or from City Power, and not realizing you'd bought stolen goods.
So who's stealing them? Have you got an idea? What are the police telling you?
So the police are telling us these are not random crimes. These are extremely organized syndicates. We've seen it along some of the big highways. So we would see, for instance, on a Saturday night, we would see an entire 100-kilometer section of a highway where you would find individuals dropped off at cellphone towers along the entire section of a route, and the vehicles would then return, and literally we would find people being picked up. So you'd lose an entire section in one area.
Is there a way that the people who are making these batteries or supplying could change the way they're packaging, making them, to make it difficult to access, or even if you've stolen it, it has become useless? I'm thinking like your cash in transit, when they've put the die to render the notes unusable.
Absolutely. So the makers of this have looked at all sorts of mechanisms to destabilize the products. There have been security mechanisms that have been built into it, but it is extraordinary. The insights and
then it costs you more, because if you innovate like that, somebody has to pay for it.
Exactly. And then the innovation that goes into the criminals overcoming those mechanisms. So for now, what we're looking to do is to try and make sure we get as much education out there, to also get communities to join, because it's not just an MTN problem. This is every single operator.
Yeah, I've had reports that some of them find their way into Mozambique and some of the neighboring countries. And you've mentioned that people are using them to fire up their solar panels. They think it's legit. Meanwhile, it's stolen stuff. They don't know. But are the police managing to collaborate with police from Mozambique, for example, or Zimbabwe, wherever else these batteries are ending?
Very much so. We've had very good collaboration with border policing, because we certainly are seeing that. And of course, when you're starting to see some of the power problems that our neighbouring countries are having, it would make sense that you would see that. So there certainly have been arrests at our border posts.
Okay, but for now, what is a major appeal as an MTN to say, what should the public really be doing? Because we get disadvantaged in many ways. If you have an emergency, suddenly the tower is down, there's load shedding, you can't get a signal.
The main thing we're asking all the networks together are saying, keep an eye on your neighborhoods. Understand that we are working with the police so that they understand what they're looking for. We're working very closely with the police on a weekly basis. So if you see people hanging around base stations, please don't assume that they are there for legitimate reasons, particularly if they're hanging around at night. Please then report it to your local police. Please get them to come out and to investigate. Most of the time, the majority of the work will be undertaken during the day. We will really only be sending people out if there's an issue that's happened during the night. And we would rather have those calls coming in to alert us rather than have situations where your connectivity as a customer is being disabled.
Thank you very much. Jackie O'Sullivan speaking on behalf of MTN, but also sharing the industry's frustration with this ongoing crime.